Film is a medium that transports. All I have to do is pop myself in front of the TV to watch a movie, and I can just enjoy whatever place the film takes me to.
Movies have always been an escape. It gives you a whole new world to be in.
I have a rekindled love affair with movies.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Real to Real Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and we are here once again to talk all things movies. Joining me, as always, is the other Real to Real Talker, Paul Britton. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
It is time once again to talk films. We are missing our third musketeer, Susan Chisholm.
Yeah.
Just want to give her a shout out and say hello. But tonight, it's you and I to carry the load. So
we get to talk Marvel movies that you don't want to watch anymore. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic.
And you know, I'm looking forward to this conversation with you because I really have been wondering, and there's a reason I haven't reached out and be like, what you thought? What'd you think? Because I had an interesting reaction to this film.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about, of course, Eternals that just came out this past week, the latest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
And in addition to that, we will be talking about a film featuring one of America's most beloved actors, Tom Hanks, in Finch on Apple TV. So two very different films. And I'm excited. I'm excited.
Sneak preview.
Talk about like range of reactions. But yeah, so but in the meantime, Paul, you were on here recently doing some reviews yourself. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Has it been an interesting movie couple of weeks?
Honestly, yes, but because it's October's over, and I don't have to watch horror movies anymore. There is some spillover with that, and that will show up in the what the hell did I just watch? But
nice.
For actually the next 2 weeks.
Well, there you go. That's always a good thing. So
yeah, no, it's good times. But no, honestly, yeah, it's been interesting. I've got to watch some really good movies. Some really good movies have come out lately, so I'm excited. And spoiler alert, I did like both of these movies. So let's just dive right into it, man.
We definitely will, and we're going to dive right into Marvel Cinematic Universe's latest installment into their brand. It is a film called Eternals, and I will start, Paul, by saying that I went to this film knowing that I had zero background in terms of who these characters were from a comic book standpoint. I've always been clear about the fact that my experience with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and anything Marvel is purely through the films.
Yep.
I've read the occasional comic book and stuff, but I am nowhere near versed in even the more common characters as far as a comic book approach. Eternals even less.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Are you familiar with these characters from a comic book standpoint?
I am not, and for the most part, not. And I did read comics to an extent, but I read Avengers. I was a big Avengers kid when I was growing up, and so I stuck with the Avengers. So I mean, but here's the thing: we're not in Army of Thieves, but that's all right. But I did. I also didn't have any sort of relationship with Guardians of the Galaxy either. So like that's a great example of one where I didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy going in. Nothing at all. And so that is clearly not a deterrent for me to enjoy a Marvel movie, so or give it a chance to introduce these characters and so
yeah. And for me, again, going in through, you can hear my cat protesting in the background because I think he feels I should have done Eternals a whole lot better. It was, again, I really tried to approach it from the standpoint of like, okay, I'm here to learn. I'm going to just enjoy the movie and so forth and so on. And knowing I had no sort of basis for understanding these characters. So as the film begins, and as our review of it begins, I want to say that there's absolutely nothing wrong, except for one small bit, with anything related to the production of the film itself.
Okay.
It is wonderfully filmed. Chloe Zhao is a fantastic director.
Yes.
She does amazing things with color palettes in this film
that
I kind of want to comment on. But My comments and my struggles are going to be more about story.
Okay. Sure.
But let's talk first about just the visuals and the overall production aspect of this film. Very big in scope.
Yeah.
Very colorful. One of the things that stood out to me, Paul, was how sometimes films, when they do flashbacks, they sort of mute the colors in the flashback.
Sure.
I felt like Chloe Zhao really amped up the colors.
Yeah.
In the flashback.
Time.
I thought, okay, good. So it wasn't just me.
Babylon was like, if that was Babylon, I'm going to Babylon in a time machine. Like
exactly.
if that's really what Babylon looked like, that's where I'm going. You know, forget the future, 1955. I'm going to Babylon.
Yeah, exactly. So Paul, if you would talk a little bit about the movie from a production standpoint, what stood out to you? What were some things that you felt were, did this movie really, really flash off the screen as much as I felt it did?
Yeah, I mean, this Chloe, one of the sort of the jokes, I don't know if it's a joke, but one of the jokey anecdotes about this film, and specifically having Chloe Zhao direct it, was that Kevin Feige, during a presser at a year ago or so, made a big deal about, and Chloe Zhao uses all these real, live settings and backdrops and it's totally different for a Marvel movie, and it's just like a sunset, it's just like, but I mean, it's amazing, and she really brings that grandiose natural perspective as opposed to grandiose, here's a city in outer space that doesn't exist, and it is a big time. And Blair is online asking, is the color palette a throwback to Jack Kirby comics? And 100%. Not as trippy as Jack Kirby used to provide, and Jack Kirby was the creator of the Eternals, so it wasn't as psychedelic or trippy as what Jack Kirby with its shapes and stuff, but it was certainly very vibrant, and a lot of blues, a lot of yellows. Thinking about about Babylon. Their costumes were each character had a when they were in superhero mode, had a costume that absolutely popped. It takes place in London, so you get the big red bus, and that's just it's just the things that are important, that are drawing your eye to it, just are doing that, not through motion but through color, and it's just very boom, like here it is, and it's good. It works. It really works.
It really does, and I think that the overall narrative and so forth, I think, was well handled. Again, my issues are nothing to do with the film from a cinematic standpoint. I think it was beautifully put together. It was well directed. The acting was fantastic, and it's a cast that was anchored by maybe one or two familiar names. And it was kind of cool knowing that these characters that I was unfamiliar with were in many cases being played by actors that I have very little experience with, or no experience at all.
Right.
So that for me was kind of refreshing, is that ability in a Marvel cinematic movie to be able to say, hey, these are some new actors that they're introducing to us in these roles that we've not seen played before. So from the standpoint of story, if there's something I struggled with on this film, is this movie, I felt, was a love letter to those who really were fans of these characters.
Interesting. Okay.
From a comic book standpoint, is what I thought, because I found myself feeling like, because I can't relate to the characters, because I'm not familiar with the genre, of this set of characters, it took away from my ability to really feel like, okay, what am I invested in? And I think part of it, there's a couple of decisions that were made that I think were missteps, because I was talking to my friend Nick after the film. Nick Kramer and I went to go watch movies together. He's the one who introduced me to Marvel. I said, if they would stop flashing backwards, like there was that scene in the movie where they're like, so, why didn't y'all get involved with Thanos? And, there was even a reference to Captain America at one point. I feel like if they hadn't done that and just let this story stand on its own, I would have been a little less taken out of the moment to go, oh, okay, how am I supposed to feel vested in this world?
Right.
And the way Nick explained it to me, and I wish it had helped after, but he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, with Marvel, with the original 22, you were taken to a very familiar place in terms of characters that are well known, relatively well known. This is now digging deeper into the Marvel comic book world,
right?
To those that are your hardcore fans, right? And I felt like that really sort of made it fall short for me, because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about these characters. So no fault of the film,
right?
It made it hard for me to enjoy overall.
I would say I would say that I think that is part of the film's fault, though, and the way they told the story. So the parallel, again, I'm just gonna, because it's a valid parallel, is Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy is very out there as well. It's just, it's not, it wasn't a huge property before they made the movie, and the characters weren't super huge characters that popped up in oh my gosh, here's Guardians of the Galaxy and Fantastic Four, and oh my gosh, here's Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, and oh my gosh, here's Guardians of the Galaxy and the X-Men. Very confined to their thing, and every once in a while, maybe an Avenger would show up in one of their things, but it was with Guardians of the Galaxy, they made the decision, we're introducing Star-Lord, and we're focusing on Star-Lord, and that he's the character we're going to get everybody to like, and then blow it out for, and then have everybody kind of come along and develop around Star-Lord. I think that was one thing that was a problem with this movie, and I'll agree with you, is that they didn't give you that one character. Clearly, the character was Cersei, Gemma Chan's Cersei. She's the one that they clearly wanted to do that with, but they didn't. It felt like the beginning wasn't an introduction to Cersei. The beginning was an introduction to the Eternals, all of them.
Right.
And it's a lot to take in the beginning. And it almost seems like that caused a problem in focus. And in Guardians of the Galaxy, I focus on Star-Lord, everything's going on around him. In Eternals, your focus is on the big picture. It's on this group of people. The
team.
And it's how do you introduce that? Once you've introduced the team, well, now I have to go back and learn who they are. It's not easy. It's really not easy. I wonder if they had just shot the introductory scene, the first 15 minutes, and then gone back and written the rest of the movie, it might have worked better. Because I think if they had, they would have decided to focus on Makari, played by Lauren Ridloff, and Druig, played by Barry Keoghan, because that relationship was far more interesting for me than Cersei and Ikaris. And I thought the most interesting of all of the Eternals was Makari. She's the one that has the super fast speed.
Right.
It also is deaf. I mean, which was a really cool thing. And but I thought that added some really great layers to the character. So but they were focusing on Cersei. It would have been nice if that's how it started. I think they should have started with that and got us hooked on Cersei, and then introduced everybody else.
Yeah, from a story standpoint, it was such a long movie, and that just seems to be what's going to be going on with Marvel movies now. That there was, again, that proverbial sort of slowing down in the middle of the whole thing. Once the third act began, it was very entertaining, a lot going on. I loved the production design in this film, the way in which the deviants were created and portrayed and so forth. The CGI is amazing in this film. The thing for me that was most telling, and to my point of why I felt like the movie falls short for me, is the huge amount of exposition that had to happen post, in the denouement of the film, that after it reaches its peak. Now there's so much exposition happening that you're and they even use the stingers to do some of that, to try to kind of get you like, okay, we said something before, we should probably deliver something now. And it's like, okay. So I'll leave it at saying that when I was finished with the movie and I was talking it over with Nick, who is he's sort of the expert on all things Marvel from a comic book standpoint, I said, look, when and if there's a sequel, I'll be there. Right. But boy, I've got to do some research, you know. And if the movie was successful at one thing, Paul, and we've talked about this, you and I, often before, it drove me to want to know more about this property and about these characters. So again, the film is great. I think it's a successful film. I just didn't know enough for it to have impact, you know, but it did make me curious.
Sure. And I, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they weave in the characters. And Nick, who is on, did mention it would have been interesting to follow Dane Whitman and his experiences of everything through Cersei. And I agree with that, actually. I do agree with that. I do feel like that relationship was introduced very early on. And what, again, was more interesting than the Icarus Cersei relationship.
Had there been more interplay, I think it would have been more of what we were used to.
Right. And the good news is, because of the stinger, you know, we might get that. So
yeah, Nick asks, did you guys see who the voice was revealed to be at the end, the one that stopped Dane before he touched the sword?
No, I did not. No. I just thought it was somebody doing a bad Samuel Jackson impersonation because, well, I don't want to ruin the stinger, so I'm not going to. You know, we're done with there is a stinger that involves Dane Whitman. If you want to, interesting. That makes sense.
That between us.
Can we delete that? No, but it's okay. Definitely, as with most Marvel movies, stay to the end. There are two fantastic stingers that, you know, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that of course point to the fact that this will continue. And so the only other thing that I know I thought was for all of the story building that is not all, but for the story building that's begun, that's going to get us into the whole multiverse and so forth. I really felt like this film, given what I've seen in Loki and films since then, I don't know that this movie did that for me. I obviously the assumption can be they'll play a role, right? But I need to know more about the Eternals, and I'm hoping another film will help me get there.
So. And you will, because it's going to. The key is the Celestials, and they are going to play a major part in events to come. Cough, cough, Fantastic Four, cough, cough, Galactus,
gotcha.
Cough, cough. So,
well, hey, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, here on Real to Real Talk, we rate our movies on a 5 tacos. Our movies. We rate movies on a 5 taco scale. A movie can receive as many as 5 tacos, but if you want to give it some extra love, you can throw some guac on it. So, Paul, if you would, for Eternals, what is your rating for the film?
Yeah, you know. Much like heist movies, Marvel movies start with a pretty high floor. This one goes ahead and gets 4 tacos from me. It's not getting the guac. It didn't deliver anything that would make me say, yeah, you know, it just delivered, all right, another Marvel movie, you know. Gotcha. So, yeah, it's getting the 4 tacos.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to preface my score by, again, mentioning Nick, because he and I talked at length about this movie afterwards in the parking lot of the theater we were at. And I had already told him what I was going to give the film, but I've had time to think. And my original 3 is going to be a 4 taco score as well. And again, because I can't fault the film for my own inexperience in the property, right? The only reason it doesn't get higher than 4 is because of things like the story dragging in the middle, the way in which so much exposition had to be done. It just didn't really, you know, complete the picture the way Marvel movies tend to. But no doubt that Chloe Zhao has created a beautiful film that I'm hoping she'll have the helm for the sequel and so forth, because it's a property that I've done a lot of reading on the Eternals since that night, and I'm excited to say, okay, when the next one comes up, I'll be there. So four tacos for Eternals from this guy. So
I just want to show a comment really quick, Blair, because I mentioned the Fantastic Four and Galactus. Blair asked who plays Silver Surfer. The answer to that is nobody yet. So, but the rumors a while ago was that Marvel powers that be spoke to. Oh shoot, I can't remember. Was it? Never mind. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just BSing. I want to know too. I can't wait.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right. Fantastic. Well, from Eternals, we and again available in theaters. We go to a film that is available on Apple TV, Apple Plus. I don't even know what it's called. Is it Apple TV?
You can. It's Apple Plus on your Apple TV.
Your Apple TV. Although you can get it through Prime now. And here we are. It's a movie called Finch. Tom Hanks' latest installment in what is, I think, now a trilogy of movies in which he's basically acting by himself. And so Finch is a unique story. There's at least two. Yeah, some people are saying that Terminal would have been, very close, but for me, it's a reach.
It's two. It's two. Come on, that's
Finch is the story of I don't know that I would call it post-apocalyptic. It's something has happened that has caused the the end of mankind, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so Tom Hanks as Finch is in a position where we're seeing him try to. I almost don't want to give away the story. Like, the story element is so important to this film. But this is a movie about trust.
Yes.
And I don't want to give away the storyline too much, because that's the fun of it.
Yeah. I think we can, I think IMDb's, if we read IMDb's thing of it, it'll give you enough.
The blurb.
On a post-apocalyptic Earth, a robot built to protect the life of his creator's beloved dog learns about life, love, friendship, and what it means to be. So Tom Hanks creates a robot for his dog. By the way, Tom Hanks is like basically a genius in this movie, which is fine. I can buy Tom Hanks as a genius. So,
right. Yeah. So this movie is one of those films that if you don't think too much about it, it can really take you places emotionally. Are there gaping plot holes? Absolutely.
There were. I didn't even notice.
Okay, good. And the reason and I'm glad you said that, because the only reason that I even thought was because I could pause. Okay. If I had been in a movie theater, I would have thought of these things after, because I was so taken in by the story. And so,
can you reveal a plot hole without spoiling the movie? Because I hadn't even thought about, like, I did not. What's
dog
that?
Food.
Well,
dog food and its accessibility.
He finds some. Like, he literally,
some. But he goes from St. Louis to San Francisco. And I think about, well, what about long term? So things like that.
Okay. He does mention in the movie, like, one of the key points of the movie is it's always a good time to stop and look for scavenge for food.
There are some things that are put together with, like, glue and gum and stuff, but no, it's not enough to take me out of the experience.
How interesting would that movie have been if half of the movie was him looking for dog food?
True. Well, and I think they even do a good job of establishing why food for him wasn't that big a deal. How, because the importance that the dog plays in the story. And suffice it to say, when you have a vehicle that stars Tom Hanks and his co-stars are a robot and a dog, both of which are fantastic in this.
Oh my god!
I never thought I'd be saying that. The dog was amazing. It comes down to story. It comes down to, can this story keep you enthralled from beginning to end? And for me, it works.
100%.
It works.
Talk
a little bit, Paul, about your experience in watching this film, and kind of what were some of your highlights and such.
I mean,
this film?
The highlight and the low light was the same moment when I was literally sobbing uncontrollably.
Okay.
I just bought into this. You have to be able to buy into the idea that a guy creates a robot to watch his dog. Yeah. If you are one of those people who likes dogs better than people, this movie is going to definitely work for you. Like you're going to be like, yes, the only reason why I would even create a robot is to watch my dog. That makes sense to me. Yeah. If you're not a dog person, if you're just ambivalent towards animals, I don't know how this is going to play for you. Yeah. But I mean, dear God, it really, really, really does such a great job of tapping into the binary relationship that you develop, the codependency that you have on your animals, and just, you know, and then it puts it to an extreme level of, right. Okay, so you love your dog now and you don't even like going away for a weekend, you know. Now imagine that dog literally being it. Like, there's nothing else that you can relate to,
sure,
as a living creature. And it's like, holy crap, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I bought in. If you have to buy it, you have to be like, okay, this guy can create a robot, and this guy needs it. Is teaching this robot how to take care of his dog. And that's what it is.
That's literally. And we still haven't given away a ton of the film. It's such a compelling read. It's such a great. It's well written. Yeah. Beautifully filmed. Like I know I say that a lot lately, but movies are just.
By the way, if you do watch this movie, I hope people watch this movie, you're gonna know the ending within the first 15 minutes. Like, sure. So exactly what you think is probably going to end up happening when you start watching this movie is probably what happens by the end of the movie.
It's all about the journey.
Yeah, what they do such a good. This is a perfect example of movies that I love, which are character development movies. This is not. Yes, they throw in a couple of high tension scenes and stuff because they have to do that.
Sure.
Yes, there is a loose plot of he's going to San Francisco and they don't really establish why he's going to San Francisco. You know, I don't know how much he would know. You know, like, right. and there's an interesting scene in this movie where it's like, whoa, that was unexpected, would he have known that, going to San Francisco would have actually been a good thing to do for long before when he finally goes? I don't know. But yeah, it's it's the characters.
Right.
Can you attach to a robot named Jeff? That's it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I think, can you attach to Tom Hanks with a dog, a robot, and actually two?
Yeah, two robots.
Because that second robot was actually one of my favorite characters in the whole film.
Agreed. Yes.
And so, yeah, it's one of those things that for me, if I had a nitpick, Paul, because sometimes I find them, not always.
I do too. It's good.
If I had a nitpick about this film, there was part of me that was like, haven't I seen this Tom Hanks performance before? Because it seems to, again, I don't know that it's. Do I want to call them Tom Hanks tropes because they're his way of acting? But there are just things, like every emotion that we see him go through in this film, we've seen him go through before.
Okay.
And so, but that's a massive nitpick. That's a massive.
I don't know that he's ever made me sob like a baby before.
Really? Okay. All right.
That's like fair. Because I don't know
I'm not a crier, so
I don't know that I have had this visceral a reaction.
Gotcha.
Like, Pixar movies regularly make me cry. That's like absolutely a thing that happens. Sure. But this was not that. This was so much more. This was just it. I literally broke down. Like, I literally had to rewind the movie a minute because it took me a while. It took me a while to pause the movie before I realized, oh my God, I have no idea. I lost it. And you know, I had to get up. I had to walk away. It was like, if I had been in a movie theater, that would have been the most embarrassing moment of my life, because just dying. I am so glad this was only on Apple Plus. But yes,
and again, if I'm not someone who cries at movies, but which is well documented on the show. But the last time I think Tom Hanks' performance brought me to tears was way back Saving Private Ryan. So, but what I can say about his performance in this film is there is comfort in knowing and watching him deliver yet again. You know, another strong performance that makes the film, and when the weight of the film is on you,
man,
Tom Hanks 99 times out of 100 delivers.
The man can carry him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Denzel, Meryl Streep.
Sure.
The list is not long. People that can carry an entire movie for the entire length of the movie completely on their own. It's not a super long list.
He's definitely one. Blair makes a great point, though, that we might not want to forget. So, you know.
Well, no, I absolutely watched Bosom Buddies.
But so again, the movie is Finch, and against our taco rating scale, Paul, where does Finch land for you?
I finished it and I was like, I'm giving this one 5+ guac, but I don't know if that's genuine. I think that's more a reaction to my visceral reaction to the movie. I'm going to go 4+ guac.
Okay.
But I loved it. I don't know why I'm not going with my initial thought of 5+ guac. I think it's because literally nothing happens in the movie. So I have to acknowledge that, and it's just basically character development for a robot, and that's literally what the movie's about. And when I do stop and think about that, it's like, nothing really happens in this movie, and we just get to see the character development of a robot, which is worth 4+ guac.
Sure, absolutely.
Soggy, tear-ridden guac.
There you go. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, for me, I'm going to land at a solid 4 tacos for this film. It doesn't get to 5 for very much the same reason you're saying. For the minutes that you're in this film, for the time that you're in it, it's just short of 2 hours. Yeah. It doesn't feel like 2 hours.
No.
It does take you on a ride. Yeah. But at the end, when it's over, you're like, okay, good. The story did what it was supposed to.
Works.
I have questions about what happens after, but it didn't have that last bit of punch to get me to 5 because I wasn't as emotionally vested as I think they were trying to get us to be.
Okay, I was.
But there's no doubt that unlike our recent look at Clint Eastwood, Tom Hanks continues to deliver at this stage in his career, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Him work. So fantastic. I mean, he can basically, we can now say he can basically act with anything. So give that man a broom and see what happens. So, all right. Well, that brings us to the part of the show where we remind you that you can interact with us here at Real to Real Talk at various places. First and foremost, join us on our Facebook page. Just look up the title of the show, Real to Real Talk, and you can not only catch past episodes, since we broadcast there live every single week, but you can also see past posters and such of shows that we have done, so you can get back and figure out, okay, what do I want to watch them do? We are quickly approaching 100 episodes here on Real to Real Talk. It's been an exciting time of talking movies. On Instagram, you can see all of our show posters at Real to Real Talk. And also, you can see the occasional post of movies we're watching that we may not talk about on the show. That way you can maybe get some ideas on movies to watch. Here on YouTube, we thank you for watching. Make sure that you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And also click the notification bell so that if you do miss our live broadcast on Tuesdays, you can make sure you know when those episodes post and are archived on our YouTube page. So thank you so much for joining us. Right now, though, we're going to get to a little segment we like to call, What the Hell Did I Just Watch? Paul, thrill us once again.
All right. So, I teased earlier that I've got a couple of spillovers from Halloween. And this is one that, like, I wasn't even planning on doing this one. Like, this is one that I sat down and watched because another source I'd been watching said, "Oh, if you want to really stomach something, watch Raw." And that's the movie I did. So it's a movie. It's a French movie called Raw. It's on Netflix right now if you're interested. And it's about a young woman who goes to veterinary school as a vegetarian, but while in veterinary school is hazed and finds out that not only does she like meat, she actually kind of likes raw meat.
Wow.
And then as she discovers that she likes raw meat, she finds out, no, raw meat's not really what I like.
Oh, gosh.
What I really like is raw human meat.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So
Why did I know?
This is a cannibal movie. Not just that, but it's a French cannibal movie. So therefore, there's a really weird thing going on. And the weird thing going on is that we find out that it's a family affair. It's not just, she's not all alone. And by the way, her sister goes to this veterinary school too. So this movie just, like, I was watching this movie and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is interesting. And then, like, I kind of knew where it was going because they don't really hide it in the, oh yeah, she got tongue for sure, Blair. I knew where this was going, and it just goes there and you just are shocked. It's just, this movie is just so like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening. This is a truly, truly shocking. I finished the movie and I was just kind of like, my eyes were glazy and I had to walk my dogs. So I get my dogs walking and I'm walking my dogs and I'm thinking about this and I stop and I think, what the fuck did I just watch? And I was like, oh, yeah, I literally said that out loud without thinking about the podcast at all. At no point while I was watching the movie, did I think, oh, I should do this for my podcast.
Oh, okay.
But then once I was walking my dogs and I said that, I was like, oh yeah, all right.
There you go.
If I actually say that out loud, after a while, it is a really, really well made, well acted movie. Yeah. I highly recommend it if you think you can make it through. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, I imagine so.
But brava to the filmmakers for just making an absolutely startling, shocking movie. Just I've never been more like, what? Like, ever. Just never. It's crazy.
Paul, forgive me for having to ask this, but in case you said, but when did this movie come out?
Oh, good question.
Do we know? Okay.
No, I don't.
I was fully expecting it was going to be some sort of like late 70s kind of thing.
No, it's not. It's very recent. I know. It's 2016. It's 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it totally feels like a 1977 movie. I know
some kind of plot from back then,
right? But no, this is. I mean, the movie. Here's the crazy thing. The amazing thing about this movie is the opening scene. The opening scene is you see a car, like, and it's an opening credits scene. So like it's just you're watching the credits and you see this empty road, and it's a road lined by trees. Just a beautiful bucolic scenery, farmland, mountains way off in the distance, beautiful tree lined road.
Yeah.
There, and you do see there's a flaw. It's not, the road is not perfect. There's a flaw in the road, and you're like, what? I don't even know what that is. Yeah. And then you see like a car drives into the scene of the thing, and it goes for a while, and then like the car swerves into a tree, and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? And just as the opening credits end, that like flaw in the road that you saw stands up and walks towards the car, and you never actually see it reach the car, but you just see it stand up and walk towards the car, and you're hooked. You're like,
sure,
what was that? Why did that just happen? That was weird. Gotcha. And it's just and then there's a payoff later in the movie for that. Gotcha. And it's just perfect. I am telling you, it's just an extremely well-made, disturbing movie.
Nice. Well, I always say you bring us the good stuff week to week, so thank you so much. As always, you can find out what kind of weirdness Paul is watching if you stop by every week and watch the show, and then maybe you should watch them and tell us what you think. And I'm sure Paul would love to hear from you. All right, Paul. Well, thank you as always for bringing us the theater of the weird on What the Hell Did I Just Watch? It is time now for us to take a look at a segment we call Real Time Rewind. And I like to share movies that I revisit and encourage folks that if you haven't seen them, maybe you should. And if you have, check them out again. This week, I'm going to talk about a film that is one of my favorites. It's been quite a few years since I watched it. And I watched it because I'm like, that was 20 years ago? This is crazy. Steven Soderbergh in 2001 released a movie called Traffic. Traffic is such a riveting film, and the work that Soderbergh does in filming this, and it was sort of around the time when movies of this type were popular, where you had 5 or 6 storylines happening independent of themselves, probably like 3 or 4 more so in this film, and they cross paths but don't always sort of and so you're getting to watch 3 or 4 different stories play out in the scope of a film, and this movie it deals with the war on drugs and the impact that it has on different lives. People like Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, Michael Douglas, Dennis Quaid, Catherine Zeta-Jones. I mean, these are all folks that, while some don't share time on screen, they all bring their A game when it comes to the success of this story and of this film. Soderbergh took the Academy Award for Best Director for this film, and it won several other Oscars as well, including Benicio del Toro for Best Supporting Actor, and Stephen Gaghan for writing. So, and it really surprised folks at the Oscars when it won the way it did. Benicio del Toro had also won a Golden Globe for it. It's just a great film that is really the kind of stuff I like. Lots of talky, scenes.
Super talky. Oh my God.
But yeah, it's one that I love to recommend to people if you really want to introduce yourself to Steven Soderbergh's work. It's one of his best.
Or Benicio del Toro's work.
True. Yeah, absolutely. He's fantastic in this film.
Yeah.
So I encourage you to check out the film Traffic from 2001. You will not be disappointed. And if you have seen it, check it out again, because it stands up well. And I couldn't believe it's been 20 years. So
yeah, what I want to mention, like, Soderbergh has a very distinct style, and that definitely shows up in this movie. But this is also, I feel, one of his most understated movies. It's very, very like, it doesn't have any of the flash of an Ocean's movie or any of, he so often brings in like levity and into his movies that are, the one with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. Why can't I think of it?
The Elmore Leonard film.
Right. So the one I'm talking about. It's like there's always a playfulness in his movie. Right. This is not bad at all.
Although I will say, my only quibble with this film is you didn't have to give it such a nicely, tied with a bow. Things are great. I mean, if you go back and watch the ending, it's almost like, oh man, maybe 20 years ago I bought it, but these days I'm like,
that's not really how it's going to work.
That's not how life works out.
Yeah. So no, but I do think that like that is a stress reliever, because
good point.
I mean, you need something. I mean,
for what you're put through, yeah.
It's not like he's Aronofsky, where
That's a good point.
So
I withdraw my complaint. All right. Well, week to week, you can find out what movies I'm rewatching because, unlike Paul, who goes on adventures of watching all kinds of new films, I love to go backwards in time. So check it out week to week when you join us. So, Paul, it has been another fun episode. Thank you for holding down the fort last week for all of us. And I look forward to continuing this journey with you because we got some stuff coming up. Next week, we'll be talking about Belfast and the second film.
Red Notice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about those films and
again, opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
I haven't seen either one yet, and it's going to be.
Yeah. But to your point that you made, award season is in full swing, and at least not season, but now is the time where we start to see those entries start to be placed, yeah.
I didn't even look to see if Belfast is coming to a theater near me because, I got screwed over with the French Dispatch. It didn't come to me a week late.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We should probably talk Soderbergh now that I think about it in a future episode because his work is very interesting.
He makes a movie a year, so I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about. Year, so. Yeah,
absolutely. Can I give a shout out to our friend Blair? I love the participation and how much he comments. So Blair, thank you for being a friend of the show and for all of your input there on YouTube. So thanks so much for joining us. Paul, I guess until then, happy movie watching to you.
Absolutely.
I'll be doing the same these next few days, and we'll get together once again next Tuesday and have a ball.
Ooh, awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, to all of you out there, we thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it week to week, checking out the work that we do here. For yourself, though, remember, go out, watch the movies, have some fun, and enjoy life. Because remember, you're awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. We'll see you next time.